The cry that freezes blood. They say, if you hear her cry, it's already too late. Somewhere in the darkness. Near a river? Near a canal? Near water that barely moves. A woman cries for her children. Not a scream. Not a shout. A wail. Long, broken, endless. Miss Hijos. My children. Those who hear it describe the same feeling. Your chest tightens. The air grows heavy. Your body freezes. As if something ancient has noticed you. Miss Hijos. They say if her cry sounds far away, she is already close. And if it sounds close, she is standing right behind you. Across generations, people have sworn they saw her. A woman in white, standing at the edge of a riverbank. Her long black hair hides her face. Her feet never touch the ground. She does not chase. She does not run. She waits. Because she knows something you don't. You heard her. What is La Llorona? La Llorona. The weeping woman. Her name is whispered across Latin America with fear, respect, and warning. She is not just a ghost. She is not just a story told to frighten children. La Llorona is a spirit. A curse. An omen. And a warning passed down for over 500 years. She appears dressed in white. Sometimes soaked, sometimes glowing faintly in the dark. Her hair is long. Black. Covering her face like a veil of mourning. And wherever she appears, there is always water. Rivers. Lakes. Canals. Flooded roads. Even drainage ditches. Places where life can disappear without a sound. She wanders through Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, Venezuela, and beyond Latin America. She has been reported in Texas, California, New Mexico. Anywhere the story traveled, she followed. Her cry never changes. Miss Hijos. A mother searching for children she can never have back. Some say she takes children who wander too close to water at night. Others say she mistakes them for her own. And some say she isn't looking for children at all. She's looking for you. Tonight, we're not here to retell a campfire story. We're here to do something far more unsettling. To separate myth from memory. To explore where La Llorona truly came from. Why people keep seeing her. And why her cry still terrifies grown adults who know better. Because legends don't survive for centuries by accident. Why this legend refuses to die. For more than 500 years, La Llorona has been passed down by word of mouth. Not written. Not recorded. Spoken. From parent to child. From grandmother to grandchild. From village to village. She was used as a warning. Come home before dark. Stay away from the river. Or La Llorona will take you. As children, we're told it's just a story. But something strange happens when we grow older. The fear doesn't disappear. It changes. Because as adults, we understand what La Llorona truly represents. Motherhood. Loss. Regret. Unforgivable guilt. She is the embodiment of a nightmare no parent dares to imagine. Losing a child. Or being responsible for that loss. That's why she doesn't fade with time. Crying ghosts exist in almost every culture. From the Banshee in Ireland, to Pontianak in Southeast Asia, to La Patasola in South America. Because grief has a sound. And when humans hear crying in the dark, especially the crying of a woman, our instincts tell us something is wrong. Something unfinished. Something dangerous. La Llorona isn't loud. She doesn't jump out. She doesn't attack immediately. She calls. And that's what makes her terrifying. Because responding to her cry requires one fatal thing: compassion. People don't run toward La Llorona because they're brave. They do it because they're human. And every legend that survives this long survives because it reflects something real. A shared memory. A collective trauma. A warning carved into culture itself. To truly understand La Llorona, we have to go back. Back before movies. Back before folklore books. Back before Spain. Back to a time when her cry wasn't a legend, but a prophecy. To understand La Llorona, we must go back centuries. The most famous origin story. Her name, in most tellings, was Maria. Not a queen. Not a witch. Not a monster. Just a woman. Maria was beautiful, they say. But more than that, she was devoted. She fell in love with a man of status. A wealthy man. A man with influence, power, and options. For a time, he chose her. They built a life together. They had children. 2 in most versions, sometimes 3. And for a while, Maria believed she was safe. But love built on imbalance is fragile. As years passed, the man grew distant. He traveled more, spoke less, looked through her instead of at her. Until one day, he left. In some versions, he marries another woman. A woman of higher class. In others, he simply disappears, leaving Maria with children, shame, and no protection. What matters is not how he left. What matters is what he took with him. Her future. Her security. Her identity. Maria was no longer a wife. She was no longer desired. And in a world that offered women little mercy, she was suddenly invisible. They say her grief didn't arrive all at once. First came sadness. Then obsession. Then rage. Not just at him, but at the children. Because to Maria, they were proof. Proof of a love that failed. Proof of a life she was never meant to have. Night after night, she walked with them near the river. Water that reflected the moon. Water that swallowed sound. And on one final night, she went too far. Some versions say she heard voices. Others say she acted in silence. But every telling agrees on one thing. She took her children into the water. At first, they laughed, thinking it was a game. Then they panicked. Then they screamed. And then, nothing. When the water went still, Maria understood what she had done. The rage vanished. The grief remained. They say her scream shattered the night. A scream so raw, so broken, that it echoed through the land. Miss Hijos. She searched the riverbanks until dawn, calling their names, digging her hands into mud and stone. But the river does not return what it takes. By morning, there was nothing left to search for. So Maria did the only thing she believed remained. She walked into the same river and let it claim her too. But death did not bring peace. According to the legend, when Maria reached the afterlife, she was stopped. Her soul was condemned. Not forgiven. Not reunited with her children. Instead, she was cursed. Forced to wander the earth, searching endlessly for the children she herself destroyed. Forever crying. Forever searching. Forever alone. And that is how Maria became La Llorona. Alternate origin variations. But here's where the story becomes unsettling. There is no single version. Across villages, regions, and countries, the details change. In some tellings, Maria is not betrayed by a lover. but by a Spanish conquistador. A man who promises marriage, but abandons her once she bears his children. In these versions, La Llorona is not just a grieving mother. She is the ghost of colonial betrayal. A symbol of indigenous women used, discarded, and erased. In other versions, she never meant to kill her children. A flood comes suddenly. A river overflows. An accident steals them away. Maria survives. And now her punishment is different. She wanders the riverbanks at night, calling out, hoping her children will answer. But they never do. Some say she doesn't even know they're dead. That she's trapped in the moment of loss, reliving it every night. And then there are the darkest versions. Versions whispered, not told aloud. Where Maria didn't kill her children out of rage, but sacrificed them. To avoid shame. To erase evidence. To survive in a cruel world. These versions are rare. Because they're uncomfortable. They force us to ask questions we don't want answered. So why does the story change? Because La Llorona isn't just a ghost. She's a mirror. Each region reshaped her to reflect its own pain. Colonial violence. Class divide. Motherhood under oppression. Generations of loss. As the legend spread, it absorbed trauma like water absorbs blood. And beneath every version, no matter how different, there is something older. Something that existed long before Maria. Long before Spain. Long before the river ever had her name. Because the weeping woman did not begin as a ghost. She began as a warning. And to find her true origin, we must go back further still. To a time when her cry wasn't for children, but for an entire civilization. Before La Llorona was a woman, she was an omen. The Aztec goddess connection. Long before La Llorona was a woman. Before rivers carried her name. Before Spain ever set foot on the land. There was another figure. Older. More powerful. More terrifying. The Aztecs knew her as Cihuacóatl. Her name means snake woman. She was not a ghost. She was a goddess. Cihuacóatl was associated with motherhood. But not the gentle kind. She was the protector of women who died in childbirth. Warriors believed these women were just as powerful as fallen soldiers. Because to the Aztecs, giving life was a form of war. And death was always nearby. Cihuacóatl was also associated with death, sacrifice, and destruction. She wore white. She carried infants. And she was said to appear at night, weeping. Aztec texts describe her wandering the land after dark, crying out in anguish. Her voice echoed through the streets. Not to comfort, but to warn. When people heard her cries, they knew something terrible was coming. Drought. Plague. War. Collapse. She was not mourning what had happened. She was mourning what was about to happen. Some descriptions say she carried a cradle. Others say she searched for lost children. But her cry was always the same. A mother lamenting loss before it arrived. And the most chilling detail? Cihuacóatl was said to appear shortly before the fall of great cities. Her screams were considered an omen of destruction. When the Aztecs heard her, they listened. Because she had never been wrong. This wasn't superstition. This was theology. A belief system built around signs and warnings. And one night, the cries returned. La Llorona as a prophecy. When Spanish conquistadors began approaching the Aztec Empire, something strange was reported. Multiple Spanish chroniclers, men who had never heard of La Llorona, recorded the same unsettling events. They wrote of women crying in the streets at night. Not drunk. Not injured. Crying in terror. Calling out in anguish. One account describes a woman screaming, "My children, we are about to be lost forever." Others wrote of children crying through the night, with no visible source. The cries echoed through Tenochtitlan, night after night. Before the first battle, before the first massacre, before the empire collapsed. To the Aztecs, this was unmistakable. The omen had returned. Cihuacóatl was warning them, not of a single death, but of annihilation. When the Spanish conquest was complete, when temples burned, when languages were erased, when entire generations vanished, the crying didn't stop. It changed. The goddess faded, and the woman remained. The divine became human. The prophecy became a ghost story. And La Llorona was born, not as fiction, but as cultural mourning. She became the embodiment of everything lost. Children, traditions, identity, future. Her cries no longer warned of destruction. They remembered it. La Llorona became the sound of collective guilt. The guilt of survival. The guilt of colonization. The guilt of forgetting. A mother crying for children who represent an entire civilization. And that is why her story spread so easily. Why it crossed borders. Why it adapted. Why it survived. Because La Llorona is not just one woman. She is every loss that was never properly buried. But here's the most unsettling part. Prophecies don't end when history books close. They echo. And legends don't survive unless people keep seeing her. Keep hearing her. Keep encountering something they can't explain. But legends don't survive unless people keep seeing her. Rural Mexico encounters. In rural Mexico, there are places where the river still decides who lives and who disappears. Small farming villages. Dirt roads. Houses built close to the water because that's where life has always been. And it is in these places, far from cameras, far from tourists, that the most disturbing encounters are reported. Farmers working late in the fields tell the same story. It begins just after midnight. The air becomes unusually still. No insects. No wind. Then, crying. Not screaming. Not panicked. A slow, aching sob drifting across the water. A miss hijos. At first, they think it's a woman in trouble. A mother who lost her way. Someone who needs help. But when they follow the sound to the riverbank, they see her. A woman dressed in white, hovering just above the ground. Her feet never touch the dirt. Her hair hangs forward, hiding her face. And her crying grows louder. Closer. More desperate. Then, without warning, silence. No footsteps. No movement. No trace. Just the river, flowing as if nothing happened. Those who witness her rarely speak publicly, but among themselves, they describe what happens next. Sudden illness. Fevers with no explanation. Weakness that doesn't fade. Some claim livestock die within days. Others say crops rot overnight. And almost all of them report the same thing. Nightmares. Dreams of drowning. Dreams of crying children reaching out from dark water. In a few villages, elders quietly admit something worse. That some who heard her cry didn't survive the year. No accident. No illness doctors could explain. Just sudden death. And always, the river nearby. Urban sightings. But La Llorona did not stay in the countryside. As cities grew, she followed. Mexico City, one of the largest cities on Earth, built directly on ancient lake beds. A city where water still runs beneath streets. Through tunnels. Through forgotten canals. Security guards working night shifts near old waterways report hearing crying echo between buildings. Homeless populations avoid certain canals after dark. They say a woman appears near the water's edge. Always watching. Always crying. In Los Angeles, sightings cluster around drainage canals and riverbeds. Places most people pretend don't exist. Children in nearby neighborhoods have reported seeing a wet lady in a white dress. She was calling my name. She asked where her kids were. Parents often dismiss these stories. Until dogs begin reacting. Growling at empty spaces. Barking uncontrollably at night. Refusing to go near water. In Texas border towns, the legend is treated less like folklore and more like a rule. Locals warn children never to play near canals after sunset. Some police reports, never officially linked, describe missing children last seen near water. No signs of struggle. Just footprints. Leading to the edge. Then nothing. Whether coincidence or not, the pattern remains the same. Water. Night. Crying. Rules of the curse. Over time, people who believe in La Llorona have developed rules. Not written laws. Survival rules. Rules meant to keep you alive. First, never follow the crying. No matter how human it sounds. No matter how desperate. Second, if her cry sounds close, she is far away. If her cry sounds far away, she is already near. Third, children are her primary targets. Not because she hates them, but because she is still searching. Still confused. Still grieving. And finally, water is her gateway. She appears where water connects worlds. Rivers. Canals. Flood zones. Drainage systems. Anywhere life can be taken silently. Those who believe say La Llorona doesn't hunt. She doesn't chase. She doesn't need to. She waits for curiosity. For empathy. For one mistake. And once you hear her cry, whether you believe or not, you are already part of the story. And yet, fear alone doesn't explain why she still haunts us. Fear of the mother figure. To understand why La Llorona terrifies us, we have to confront something uncomfortable. She is not frightening because she is violent. She is frightening because she is a mother. Across every culture on Earth, the mother figure represents safety, warmth, protection, sacrifice. From our first moments of life, we are wired to trust the maternal presence. A crying child runs toward its mother, not away. La Llorona shatters that instinct. She is the protector who failed. Or worse, the protector who became the danger. Psychologically, this is deeply disturbing, because it inverts one of our oldest survival mechanisms. The person who should keep you safe is the one you must fear. La Llorona doesn't roar like a monster. She doesn't bare teeth or claws. She cries. And crying is supposed to mean vulnerability, pain, a need for help. That's why people approach her. Why witnesses say they felt compelled to step closer. Why children, especially children, are drawn to her voice. La Llorona weaponizes empathy. Her grief feels real, because it is. She is not a creature without emotion. She is emotion. Uncontrolled, unresolved, eternal. Guilt made visible. Grief given a body. And guilt is contagious. When we hear her cry, we don't just fear her. We feel her. Her loss. Her regret. Her endless searching. That emotional pull is what makes her dangerous. Because fear alone makes us flee. But grief makes us hesitate. And in that hesitation, the legend takes hold. La Llorona is not chasing you. She's inviting you to share her pain. Cultural trauma. But La Llorona is more than a psychological trick. She is also a cultural scar. A memory that refuses to heal. Colonialism did not just conquer land. It erased languages, burned histories, converted belief systems by force. Entire generations were lost. Not always through death, but through forgetting. Children taken from their traditions, from their gods, from their identity. In that context, La Llorona becomes something else entirely. She is not just crying for her own children. She is crying for all of them. The children who were never allowed to grow into who they were meant to be. The children who forgot their names, their stories, their ancestors. Her endless wandering mirrors a culture searching for itself. Her white dress reflects mourning. Her cries echo across centuries. La Llorona becomes eternal grief. Not the kind that fades, but the kind that lingers, passed from generation to generation. She is cultural memory that refuses silence. A reminder that something precious was taken and never returned. That is why she cannot rest. That is why she cannot be defeated. Because you cannot destroy memory. And you cannot outrun grief. You can only acknowledge it, or hear it crying in the dark. And yet, if she were only memory, she would have faded by now. Movies and media. By the time La Llorona reached the screen, she had already lived for centuries. Her first major appearances in film came in the 1930s, during the golden age of Mexican cinema. These early films treated her differently. She wasn't fast. She wasn't loud. She wasn't violent for spectacle. She was sorrowful. Tragic. A figure meant to be pitied as much as feared. Audiences were meant to feel her pain. To understand that the horror came from loss, not cruelty. But as the legend crossed borders, something changed. Hollywood arrived. And Hollywood loves monsters. In modern adaptations, La Llorona is often transformed into something else entirely. She becomes aggressive, predatory, demonic. A creature that jumps from shadows. A villain to be defeated. Her grief is replaced with rage. Her sorrow with shrieks. The subtlety disappears. And with it, the meaning. Because when you turn La Llorona into a simple evil spirit, you strip away the tragedy that makes her frightening. Hollywood demands clear heroes and villains. But La Llorona exists in a grey space. She is both victim and threat. Both warning and consequence. That complexity is difficult to sell in 90 minutes. So filmmakers simplify her. They add curses, rituals, jump scares. They exaggerate her violence. And in doing so, they miss the point. La Llorona was never terrifying because she attacks. She was terrifying because she mourns. Why she's still misunderstood. La Llorona is not just a ghost. Ghosts haunt places. She haunts memory. She is not just a monster. Monsters act with intention. La Llorona is trapped. Repeating the same grief. The same mistake. The same cry. She is a warning passed down through sound, not sight. A reminder of what happens when love curdles into despair. When loss goes unresolved. When guilt has nowhere to go. Her curse is not supernatural in the way movies suggest. It is emotional. She is bound to rivers because grief flows. She searches endlessly because regret has no ending. She cries because sorrow demands to be heard. That's why La Llorona adapts so easily to every generation. Because every generation understands loss. Every culture understands mourning. And every parent fears failing the ones they love. La Llorona survives not because she scares us, but because she recognizes us. She is the part of human history that refuses closure. A story that warns. Some wounds never heal. Some cries never fade. And some legends remain misunderstood. Because understanding them would mean confronting truths we would rather keep buried. And yet, even misunderstood legends don't vanish without reason. Could La Llorona still be here? La Llorona is often described as ancient, a relic of the past, a legend that belongs to rivers untouched by concrete. But rivers don't disappear. They are redirected, hidden beneath cities, channeled through dams, forced into canals. And wherever water still flows, people still report hearing her. Modern rivers now run between highways. Dams hold back water that once flooded villages. Concrete canals replace riverbanks. But the sound of water remains the same. So do the stories. Urban legends continue to spread quietly. In online forums. In whispered warnings. In messages parents send each other late at night. Every year, new sightings are reported. A woman in white near a canal at dawn. Crying heard beneath a bridge after midnight. Security cameras malfunctioning near drainage systems. Children describing the same figure, without ever being told the story. Different cities. Different countries. Same cry. Skeptics say it's coincidence. Psychologists say it's suggestion. Historians say it's memory reshaping itself. But belief doesn't require proof. Only repetition. And La Llorona has had centuries to repeat herself. Because the conditions that created her still exist. Loss still happens. Children still disappear. Grief still goes unanswered. And water still remembers. Perhaps La Llorona never left. Perhaps she simply adapted. From riverbanks to reservoirs to storm drains to the spaces we no longer look at. But still fear. Chilling final words. Listen. Not to the video. To the room around you. To the distance. To the quiet. Somewhere. Far away. A woman is crying. Tonight. Listen carefully. Because legends don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they wait. Until the world is quiet enough to hear them. And if, one night, you hear a woman crying near water, calling out for her children, remember what you've been told. Remember every warning passed down for centuries. If you hear her cry, don't look back. Some evidence doesn't want to be explained. It wants to be remembered. The footage you just saw was only one fragment. There are more recordings. More witnesses. More moments that were never meant to be seen. If you leave now, the story ends here. But if you stay, the evidence continues. Another case is waiting. And it's already playing. Don't look away. This was only one case. More evidence exists. Continue watching. Eerie Evidence.